light in the room has softened, and the sounds of a long day gradually fade into the quiet. Somewhere beyond the window, the night moves on in silence, and your breathing slows, steady and gentle, like a calm stream flowing quietly. Welcome to Sleep Science Galaxy. Here we don't need to rush to understand everything. You can simply listen, relax, and let your mind drift with gentle reflections, as if time itself were moving more slowly. Tonight, we will reflect on something both familiar and mysterious. Dark matter. Something we cannot see, yet it quietly exists throughout the universe, much like many things in life that are still there, even when we rarely notice them. Think of this video as a small pause, a quiet space where science is told slowly, and where you can listen, rest, and let sleep arrive naturally. The universe is not empty as we think. When we look up at the night sky, the first feeling is often stillness and emptiness. The stars appear as small points of light, scattered, quiet, separated by distances so vast that most of the sky seems to be nothing but darkness. In that moment, it feels natural to think that the universe is mostly empty, that between the stars there is only a cold void stretching without end. That thought is much like standing in a wide field at night, where distant lights only make the darkness between them feel deeper, and we sense that everything around us is only silent space. Yet sometimes, when we remain a little longer in that silence, another feeling begins to appear. Not a sense of emptiness, but something harder to name. As if the darkness is not truly nothing, but simply something our eyes are not accustomed to noticing. The sky remains still, the stars remain where they are, but the idea of emptiness begins to shift very gently, like entering a dark room and slowly realizing that darkness is not an absence, but a presence not yet seen. Those who have spent their lives observing the sky have felt this as well. At first, they saw the universe as any of us would. Stars, faint bands of light, distant clusters of galaxies. But as they patiently followed the motions of stars, as they measured orbits that unfold over millions of years, as they listened to faint signals crossing the void, they began to notice something very strange. Objects in the universe seemed to move, as though there were more there than what the eye could see. It was not a small discrepancy, nor an error easily corrected. Every measurement, every observation, every calculation seemed to whisper the same thing, very softly, very patient, like a slow pulse beneath the stillness. The universe appeared heavier, fuller, containing more than what light revealed. If we look only with our eyes, this is almost impossible to sense. Light is what our eyes were born to understand. We are accustomed to trusting what shines, what reflects, what can be clearly seen. But the universe was not created to suit human sight. Most of what exists does not need to shine in order to exist. And perhaps much of what truly matters lies in regions that emit no light at all. There was a quiet clue that helped humanity begin to realize this. It was gravity, a force we cannot see, but can feel through motion. When one object circles another, when a star moves within a galaxy, when a galaxy gently bends passing light, all of these are soft traces of gravity. It does not speak, it makes no sound, it leaves no light. It simply remains, quietly present, leaving curves in orbits, motions slightly altered, rhythms of rotation that, if observed long enough, reveal that something unseen is contributing. It was these motions that led people to a very unusual thought, that perhaps the universe is not empty at all. Perhaps in the darkness between stars, between galaxies, even passing through ourselves, there exists something that does not shine, does not reflect, leaves no familiar trace, yet remains present in its own way. People call this dark matter. The name may sound mysterious, yet in truth it is quite simple. It means only a form of matter that does not interact with light in the way familiar matter does. Not something strange in a mystical sense, but simply a part of the universe that our senses were never designed to perceive. Like the wind before we feel it touch the skin, or the deep current beneath the sea that cannot be seen from above. If we sit quietly for a moment and imagine this, the thought may become gentle rather than frightening. Not that the universe is filled with the unfamiliar, but that it is natural, larger than our perception. Much like a forest at night, where we see only what the moonlight touches. Yet that does not mean the rest does not exist. It is simply there, silent, needing no witness in order to be part of the world. Gravity, in this story, is like a patient guide. It does not show us dark matter, but it shows us where dark matter is, by revealing what is being pulled, what is being held, what is moving in ways that only additional mass can explain. And as people began to piece together these small clues, they realized that the unseen part may be far greater than the part that shine. This thought, if allowed to pass slowly through the mind, can bring a different feeling to the night sky. No longer a cold emptiness, but a quiet ocean, where light is only the ripples on the surface, and most of the mass, most of the structure, lies deeper, calmer, needing no illumination to exist. And then, as we lie there, or sit quietly in a darkened room, a question may begin to arise very gently, without urgency, without the need for an immediate answer. If most of the universe is something we cannot see, what is it truly? What is silently passing through galaxies, holding them together, bending light, and leaving traces that can only be read with patience? That question does not need to be resolved at once. Sometimes it is enough simply to let it remain, like a faint star at the edge of vision. For the presence of the question itself, like the dark matter, is quiet, unassuming, yet enough to change the way we feel about the universe and about the stillness of space surrounding us in this very moment. The unusual motions of stars and galaxies. And as that question begins to be present, very softly, like a thin mist drifting across the night sky of thought. Human beings, too, once sat with that very question. Not in a hurried moment, but over many years, many decades. Quietly observing, patiently listening to the very slow motions of the stars. Stars, if seen with the naked eye, seem motionless. Yet when followed long enough, they are always moving, each star carrying its own orbit, drifting around the center of a galaxy like leaves slowly turning in a gentle current. Long ago, people learned how to read these motions, much like reading ripples on the surface of a lake to know there is a current below. And in that reading, they began to notice something very small at first, small enough to be easily overlooked if one did not watch for a long time. Stars near the center of a galaxy move quickly, and this is not surprising. There is much matter there. Many stars, vast amounts of gas and dust, all together creating a gravitational pull strong enough to keep everything moving at high speed. This is similar to what we see in the solar system, where planets closer to the sun move faster than those farther away. The arrangement feels natural, familiar, almost self-evident. But then, as the gaze extends farther outward, to to the edges of galaxies, where the light grows thinner, where stars lie at great distances from the center. Something very gentle, yet very persistent begins to appear. Those stars do not slow down as expected. They continue to orbit the galaxy at nearly constant speeds, sometimes even faster than what the visible mass alone could hold in place. This was not a discrepancy so large that it caused immediate astonishment. It was more like hearing a familiar piece of music and noticing a single note slightly out of rhythm. Very small, very difficult to detect, but once heard, impossible to forget. Measurements were repeated in many different galaxies, across long nights of observation, beneath many different skies. And that note was always there. The stars at the outer edges of galaxies kept moving faster than predicted. If only the matter that could be seen were present, gravity would not be strong enough to hold them. According to what we understand about motion, those stars should gradually drift outward, like droplets flung from a wheel spinning too fast. But this does not happen. They remain there, continuing to turn, continuing to follow stable orbits, as if an invisible hand were holding the entire galaxy together, very gently, yet firmly enough that nothing drifts away. That feeling, if imagined, is not necessarily a troubling mystery. It is like standing in a dark room and sensing the cool air around you. You do not see the air, yet you know it is there. Because without it, everything would be completely different. The stars, too, seem to be moving within some medium that light does not reveal. As people began to measure more galaxies, the repetition of this phenomenon became gentle but unmistakable, like the steady rhythm of the tides. Not one galaxy, not two, but nearly every galaxy observed carried the same sign. The outer regions did not behave like a system containing only luminous matter. They behaved as though the galaxies were far larger, far heavier, far more extended than what could be seen. And then, when attention moved beyond individual galaxies to galaxy clusters, vast gatherings where hundreds or thousands of galaxies moved together around a common center, a familiar feeling returned. The galaxies within these clusters were moving too fast. So fast that if only visible mass were present, the clusters should have dispersed long ago. Yet they remain, bound together, drifting through billions of years like a flock of birds flying at night, keeping formation without any visible threads connecting them. These motions were not loud or sudden. They were so slow that it took years, decades, sometimes longer, for people to recognize their patterns. And because they were so slow, they carried a special kind of calm. The universe does not hurry. Its signs do not hurry either. They reveal themselves to those patient enough to watch for a very long time. When observers began placing numbers side by side, measuring speeds, estimating masses, comparing light with gravitational pull, they found no simple error that could explain everything. It was not that telescopes were insufficient. It was not that distances had been miscalculated. It was not that clouds of gas or dust had been overlooked. Even after accounting for everything that could shine, the total mass was still not enough. What was missing emitted no light, absorbed no light, and left no familiar trace. It revealed itself only through gravity, like a deep current known only by watching how leaves drift across the surface of a lake. There was a quietness in the way this realization came to humanity. It was not a dazzling discovery, but a very slow change in the way of seeing. The night sky remained the same, the stars remained the same, but the idea of the space between them began to change. that space was no longer empty, but an invisible ocean where galaxies drift like islands, upheld by something that cannot be seen. If we allow the mind to rest in that image, a very gentle feeling may arise. That the universe is not a cold and empty place, but a place far more filled than our eyes can perceive. A place where most of what exists does not need to be illuminated in order to exist. The stars at the edges of galaxies, in their slow movements, seem to whisper this, repeating it through millions of revolutions across spans of time so vast that imagination struggles to hold them. They do not speak in words, yet their orbits tell a story of invisible mass, of forces that hold everything together, of a structure far greater than what light reveals. And when we think about this, perhaps there is no need to understand it immediately. It is enough simply to let the image remain, like a cool breeze in the night. Galaxies turning slowly, stars drifting in their paths, and somewhere, quietly, something present. Enough to hold everything together, enough to make the universe heavier, fuller, deeper than its tranquil appearance suggests. In that stillness, the question remains, gentle as breathing. If what we see is only a small part, then what is the rest? And what is silently keeping those rotations continuing, night after night, age after age, within the vast quiet of the universe? Dark matter is the foundation of cosmic structure. And when that thought lingers a little longer in the mind, very gently, like a thin mist not yet faded, people begin to realize that whatever keeps those rotations continuing is not present only at the edges of a few isolated galaxies. It seems to be everywhere. Quiet, vast, unhurried, like an ocean in which galaxies are only small waves upon the surface. Stars orbit the centers of galaxies. Galaxies drift within clusters, and clusters themselves move within even larger structures. And at every scale, from the smallest rotations to the greatest distances human beings can measure, that familiar sign remains present, patient and steady. Gravity always seems stronger than what light alone can explain. And if one listens long enough, if all those motions are gathered together, a feeling begins to emerge. Not as a sudden conclusion, but as a slow recognition. That the luminous matter we are accustomed to seeing may be only a thin layer, like morning mist upon a lake, while most of the mass of the universe lies deeper, where light does not reach. The idea that most matter does not shine, and may in fact make up the greater part of the universe, may at first sound unfamiliar. Yet, if we let the thought move slowly, it carries a quiet sense of naturalness. In life, most of what supports everything around us is also invisible. Air allows us to breathe, yet we do not see it. Gravity keeps us standing on the ground, yet we see no cord pulling us downward. The foundations of things are often like this, silent, unassuming, needing no attention. Perhaps the universe, too, is supported in a similar way. Stars, clouds of gas, the soft, luminous bands of galaxies. All these shining things are like leaves upon a branch, while the trunk and roots, the part that bears the true weight, lie hidden from sight. When people began to slowly build models of the universe to see how galaxies form, something gentle yet clear appeared. If only luminous matter existed, the primordial clouds of gas in the young universe would have struggled to gather quickly enough to form the large, stable galaxies we see today. Gas and dust, when still hot, disperse easily like vapor in the air. There must be a gravitational pull strong enough, a foundation steady enough, to hold everything together long enough for stars to be born. And there, the idea of an invisible framework began to take clearer shape, not as something that could be touched, but as a structure quietly shaping everything. Imagine scaffolding in the dark, emitting no light, yet strong enough for bricks to be placed upon it, one by one, until a building appears in daylight. When we look at the building, we see only walls and windows, but its form was guided long before by a structure no longer visible. Galaxies, too, may have grown within such a framework, an invisible lattice of non-luminous matter where gas and dust slowly gathered, cooled, and then ignited into stars. The stars we see today may be only a layer of light spread across a much deeper architecture, one that does not need light in order to exist. And that structure does not stop at individual galaxies. If we look farther, very far, where millions of galaxies are mapped across the sky, a repeating pattern begins to appear, like threads woven into an immense fabric. Galaxies are not scattered at random. They gather into long filaments, vast clusters, dense regions connected by faint bridges, with immense empty spaces between them. These images suggest the feeling of a network, a vast cosmic skeleton in which luminous matter is only the highlights, while most of the mass lies in invisible strands that bind everything together. And when observers compared these maps with slow simulations of the universe, they realized that such large structures form most naturally when an invisible component is present, one that makes up most of the mass, quietly pulling everything together from the earliest times of the universe. In gentle imagination, one might picture each galaxy surrounded by a region far larger than what we see. A region that does not shine, extending beyond the spiral arms, enveloping the entire galaxy like a very dense yet perfectly transparent mist. These regions have no sharp boundaries, no surface, only the presence of mass. Diffuse, gentle, enough to keep the outer stars in motion, enough to keep galaxies from dispersing over time. If we could see those regions, the night sky would look very different. Each galaxy would no longer be a small streak of light in emptiness, but a bright seed within a vast, soft sphere, overlapping with others, connected by invisible currents. The space between galaxies would no longer be a void, but a quiet ocean where immense structures drift past one another in the slow rhythm of billions of years. That thought, if allowed to move slowly, can bring a deep sense of fullness. The universe is not an empty place, but a place rich in ways our senses are not accustomed to perceiving. What we see is only the points of light upon the surface of a far greater reality. And this also brings a quiet, unexpected peace. The sense that there are foundations supporting everything, silently, without needing attention or recognition. The rotations of galaxies, the motions of clusters, all unfold within a stable structure, an invisible skeleton of the universe. If we allow the mind to rest in that image, a feeling may arise like lying beneath a sky full of stars and realizing that the ground beneath one's back is firm and calm, supporting the whole body without needing to be noticed. The universe, too, may be supported in such a way, by a component that does not shine, that makes no noise, yet is present everywhere, composing most of the mass, quietly keeping all structures from dissolving into the endless expanse. And in that quiet, as galaxies continue to turn, as light continues to travel across the depths of space, perhaps the most remarkable thing is not what we do not yet know, but the stability, the persistence, the patience of the universe. A patience stretching across billions of years, where invisible structures still hold the shapes of galaxies, where rotations continue, steady as the slow breathing of a vast living being. And in thinking of this, the question about the nature of that unseen substance remains, gentle as a distant star. Yet alongside it comes a very soft feeling that whether we understand or not, the universe continues to move within a deep balance, a silent support, where most of what matters most remains in darkness, quiet, enduring, and steadfast. How science tests it, many independent methods. And in that quiet, as the thought of an invisible foundation of the universe gradually becomes familiar, human beings did not stop at feeling or imagining. They continued to listen, but in a patient and unhurried way, like someone sitting by the sea at night, unable to see the currents beneath the surface, yet watching each wave, each rhythm of the tide, to understand how the ocean is moving. The stars at the edges of galaxies, as had already been noticed, do not slow down in the way people would expect. By following their motion, it is possible to draw very gentle curves that show how the speed of stars changes with distance from the galactic center. If only luminous matter were present, those curves should gradually decline, much like the orbital speeds of planets farther from the sun are slower than those closer in. But they do not decline. They remain level, quiet and steady, like a flat road stretching into the night. What is remarkable is not one single galaxy, but the repetition. These curves appear here, then elsewhere, in galaxies of different shapes, different sizes, different ages. Each time the story is told once more, very softly, very steadily, like a heartbeat that, if listened to long enough, is always there. But the motion of stars is not the only clue. Light, too, has its own way of telling a story. As light travels through space, it usually follows straight paths, delicate and persistent. Yet when it passes near large masses, its path bends, not because the light has changed its intention, but because the space around that mass has been slightly curved, like fabric gently drawn downward by a weight placed upon it. These distortions are sometimes very small, appearing only as slightly stretched shapes of distant galaxies when viewed through certain regions of space. But when measured carefully, people find that the degree of bending is often greater than what luminous mass alone can produce. Something else is contributing to the curvature of light's path, something that does not shine, yet is present enough to shape the geometry of space. In regions where many galaxies gather together, this sign becomes clearer. Galaxy clusters are immense structures, where hundreds of galaxies move within a shared gravitational field. When their speeds are tracked, when the paths of light through them are observed, when the temperature of the hot gas drifting between them is measured, all these different lines of observation seem to point in the same direction, very quietly, like small streams flowing toward a single lake. The galaxies and clusters move faster than visible mass alone can hold. Light is bent more than luminous matter can account for. The hot gas, though it makes up much of the visible matter, is still not enough to explain the full gravitational pull that binds the cluster together. Each method of observation is like a different voice. Yet all whisper the same thing, softly and patiently, that most of the mass does not lie in what can be seen. And then, when human beings turn their gaze even farther, to the most ancient signals the universe still preserves, they found a clue of great subtlety, like an echo lingering after music has long faded. This is the cosmic microwave background, the faint light remaining from a very early time, when the universe was young and hot. That light is not perfectly uniform. It carries small ripples, very delicate fluctuations in temperature, like tiny waves on the surface of a lake at dawn. Those ripples record how matter was distributed in the early universe. And when observers read those patterns, they realize that the amount of luminous matter we know today is not sufficient to produce them. A larger component must have been present from very early on, not interacting with light, yet still contributing to the initial structure of the universe. This brings a deep sense that this invisible component did not appear only later, did not merely surround galaxies after they formed, but has been present for a very long time, from epochs before any star had begun to shine. It is like the framework of a forest existing before the first leaves emerged. And then, in the patience of science, people began trying to recreate the universe in models, in slow simulations where the laws of physics are allowed to unfold across imagined time. When only luminous matter is included, large structures struggle to form in the way the sky reveals. But when an invisible component is added, one that does not interact with light but does have mass, galaxies begin to appear in the models in familiar ways. Clusters form. Vast networks gradually emerge, much like what is observed in reality. These simulations are not proof in a strong or final sense. They are more like another mirror, reflecting the same image suggested by observation. And when many mirrors, placed at different angles, all reflect a similar form, the sense of that form gradually becomes familiar. Not because it is declared by a single voice, but because it is whispered repeatedly from many directions. What brings a sense of calm to this story may not be that human beings have come to know everything, but the way the clues have come to them. Slowly, patiently, from many sides, like gentle winds passing over a field at night. No single wind is strong enough to move everything at once. But when many winds blow together in the same direction, one begins to feel the flow of the air around them. And so, the idea of an invisible component of the universe no longer rests on a single observation, no longer stands as a fragile speculation. It is like a melody played by many instruments, each with its own tone, yet all joining in the same slow, deep, and steady rhythm. If we allow the mind to rest in that image, we may feel that the universe is not a puzzle that must be solved at once, but a story being told very slowly. Through the motion of stars, through the curved paths of light, through ancient signals still echoing, and through quiet models that recreate the formation of galaxies. And in that stillness, as everything seems to move in a rhythm both long and deep, perhaps the most remarkable thing is not how much evidence has been found, but how it all tells a story together. A story not loud, not hurried, only repeating one idea, very softly, very patiently, that the universe, in its stillness, is sustained by more than what light can reveal. Dark matter as the invisible glue, holding galaxies together, and as those clues gradually blend together, like many small streams flowing toward a still body of water, the sense of an invisible component of the universe no longer feels like a distant idea. It becomes more familiar, like a quiet presence we begin to accept, even though we cannot yet see it. If we allow the imagination to drift a little further, we may picture each galaxy not only as the soft, spiraling bands of stars our eyes can see, but as being surrounded by a region far larger, one that does not shine, that has no clear boundary, spreading into the darkness like a dense yet perfectly transparent mist. The stars we see lie only in the luminous part of this structure, while most of the mass extends much farther outward, gentle yet persistent, like a vast embrace surrounding the entire galaxy. These surrounding regions do not resemble any familiar object. They have no surface, no sharp form, no solid concentration. They are more like an invisible ocean within which stars drift, moving along orbits shaped by the ocean itself. And perhaps, without that silent presence, those delicate spiral arms could not have held their form for billions of years, but would have slowly dispersed into the deep expanse. There is a very simple image that sometimes helps people sense this more easily. The image of a transparent glue, colorless, scentless, unseen, yet sufficient to hold small pieces together. Not a glue that binds tightly, but a very gentle, enduring hold, enough that things do not drift apart. In slow imagination, this invisible matter can be felt in such a way, as a quiet cohesion, never displayed, never announced, yet always present. And then, in a very rare moment, the universe seemed to offer humanity a clearer glimpse of this presence, not by making it shine, but by revealing how it behaves differently from familiar matter. Far away, two immense galaxy clusters once passed through one another in an encounter lasting hundreds of millions of years. The galaxies within each cluster are separated by vast distances. So when the clusters moved through each other, most stars simply drifted past, like ships passing in the night without touching. But between the galaxies lay clouds of hot gas, far more extended and dense than the stars. When the clusters met, those clouds collided, slowed, heated, and shone in wavelengths that human beings could observe. If only ordinary matter existed, most of the mass of the clusters should have remained where the gas slowed, because the gas accounts for much of the luminous matter. Yet when observers examined how light bent around the region, they found that most of the mass was not where the gas had come to rest. It had continued onward with the galaxies, almost as if nothing had hindered it. That image is very striking when imagined slowly. Two vast clouds collide, the densest part comes to a halt, yet the part carrying most of the mass drifts on quietly, as though it had not truly touched anything at all. Not because it does not exist, but because it does not interact in the way familiar matter does. This offers a gentle picture of the nature of that invisible component. It does not collide, does not create friction, does not heat up as it passes through itself or through gas and stars. It is like soft currents of wind passing through one another in open space, each current retaining its shape unhindered, leaving no trace except the presence of gravity. And if we allow the mind to rest in that image, the universe may begin to feel softer, not a place where everything is in constant collision and conflict, but a space where most matter passes through itself quietly and gently, like layers of mist overlapping in the early morning. The invisible regions surrounding galaxies share these qualities. They do not contract into solid bodies, do not collapse into stars, do not produce light. They spread outward, maintaining vast and stable forms, like immense bowls within which the stars are small points of light. And it is this extended form that explains why stars at the edges of galaxies continue to orbit without drifting away. They are moving within a gravitational field far larger than the luminous portion we can see. As people gradually became familiar with this idea, the image of galaxies began to change. A galaxy was no longer a solitary band of light in emptiness, but a small island within an invisible ocean, an ocean that does not reflect light, yet carries most of the weight. And these oceans overlap, touch, and pass through one another in the quiet of billions of years. There is a strange sense of safety in that image. The structures of the universe are not as fragile as they appear. However thin the spiral arms of stars may be, however deep the spaces between galaxies, there remains an invisible foundation holding everything together, very gently, very steadily, like the slow breathing of a body at rest. And in thinking about this, one may realize that the stability of the universe does not arise from what is most radiant, but from what is most silent. Not from the light of stars, but from the invisible mass surrounding them. Not from brilliant explosions, but from gravitational fields that spread quietly and endure without ceasing. If we let the thought drift a little further, we may imagine that each time we look up at the night sky, we are seeing only the surface of a far deeper structure. The stars are only bright points upon a dark background. Yet, it is that dark background that carries most of the weight, most of the support. And in that stillness, as galaxies continue to turn, as clusters of stars drift within their unseen surroundings, perhaps the most remarkable thing is not that we cannot yet see this component, but the way it is always present, always supporting, always keeping the universe from dissolving through a patience that spans billions of years. A patience so deep that it becomes almost a form of silence. Mapping the universe and the cosmic web. And in that deep quiet, as the idea of invisible regions surrounding galaxies becomes more familiar, human vision gradually extends farther still. Not only to individual galaxies, not only to clusters of stars or glowing clouds of gas, but to the entire, far greater picture. One that appears only when millions of points of light across the sky are patiently assembled. Like grains of sand brought together to reveal the shape of an entire shore. As maps of the sky became more detailed, something very gentle began to emerge. Galaxies are not distributed randomly in space, not scattered like dust in sunlight. They gather into long strands, soft chains, regions where the density of light is greater. And between those strands lie vast, quiet expanses, almost empty of galaxies. This image evokes a familiar feeling, though it is difficult to name. It is like the veins of a leaf, where fine threads connect into a network, while the spaces between them remain broad and still. Or like rivers seen from above, winding, branching, and connecting, leaving between them wide regions where movement is faint. These long strands, in slow imagination, can be felt as the invisible roads of the universe, along which galaxies are born and drift like small boats carried by a deep current. And the spaces between them, the regions where almost no light appears, are so vast as to be difficult to imagine, like silent oceans where very little matter gathers. When people began to construct three-dimensional maps of the universe, assembling the positions of millions of galaxies, this image became even clearer. Yet it retained a softness. No sharp edges, no rigid boundaries. A vast network, stretching across hundreds of millions of light years, where dense filaments connect luminous regions, and between them lie deep, silent voids, still as lakes without ripples. And then, when maps of light were compared with maps of mass inferred from gravity, a familiar realization returned. The filaments of this network do not contain only shining galaxies. Most of the mass lies in regions that do not shine, stretching like invisible currents, supporting the entire structure. In this picture, galaxies are like drops of dew resting upon the fine threads of a spider's web in the early morning. We see the droplets glimmer, yet the threads that hold them are far harder to see. And it is those threads that shape the entire web. If the mind rests in this image, the universe may begin to feel alive in a very quiet way. Not an empty expanse with a few scattered lights, but a vast, connected, gentle structure, where galaxies are only the luminous parts of a much deeper architecture. The filaments of this network are not motionless. Very slowly, very steadily, matter flows along them, like water moving through immensely wide rivers. Galaxies form where these currents meet, where mass gathers more densely, like great lakes formed where many rivers converge. And in the immense voids between the filaments, matter is sparse and motion is slight, leaving regions of profound stillness where light seldom appears. This brings a very gentle realization that even emptiness in the universe has shape, has structure, has its place within a greater whole. The voids are not places where nothing exists, but regions where matter has slowly withdrawn, drawn toward the filaments and nodes of the network, much as water recedes from higher ground to gather in deeper streams. And all of this, in the stillness of billions of years, has been shaped largely by that invisible component which humans perceive only through gravity. It does not shine to trace the filaments of the network, yet it creates the paths that light will later follow. Galaxies do not choose their positions on their own. They form where the invisible structure already exists, where mass is sufficient to hold gas and dust long enough for the first stars to ignite. If imagined very slowly, one may picture that before the first stars appeared, before the sky held any light at all, this network had already begun to take form, very gently, very slowly, like faint traces within a mist. And when light finally emerged, it simply illuminated what had long been there. There is a quiet beauty in that thought, that light does not create the structure, but only makes the structure visible. As observers continue to expand their maps, they realize that this network has no clear boundary. It stretches outward, connecting one cluster to another, extending across distances that light itself takes hundreds of millions of years to cross. And at every scale, from smaller regions to the largest volumes humanity can survey, the same image appears again and again, repeating like a pattern woven across an immense fabric. If thought is allowed to drift a little further, the universe may feel like a vast being at rest, with enormous channels through which matter flows very slowly, very deeply, and immense voids where stillness is almost complete. Galaxies are only small points of light upon the surface of this system, like distant lights in a city seen from far away, while most of the structure lies in darkness. And in that quiet, perhaps the most remarkable thing is not the immense size of the network, but its harmony. There is no sudden chaos, no harsh edges. Everything seems to move in a rhythm that is slow and steady, where gravity quietly gathers matter, where great structures form over billions of years without any haste. If we lie still and imagine, we may feel as though we are drifting in a space that is vast and calm, where invisible threads connect everything, where light is only small accents upon a deep, dark background. And within that darkness, the structure of the universe endures, persistent, supportive, needing no witness in order to remain. And perhaps, in the deep stillness of the night sky, that network is still there, stretching across unimaginable distances, holding galaxies in their courses, keeping the universe from dissolving into the void, in a patience that is slow, enduring, and quiet enough to feel almost like an eternal silence. Ruling out possibilities. what dark matter is not. And as the image of that vast network gradually becomes familiar in the imagination, as we begin to sense the invisible threads linking galaxies together in deep stillness, a very natural question arises again, gentle as a ripple spreading across calm water. If most of the mass of the universe does not shine, then what could it be? And just as importantly, what is it not? Those who observe the sky have long been accustomed to beginning with what is most familiar. When a new phenomenon appears, the first step is usually not to search for unfamiliar ideas, but to ask whether what is already known might explain it. It is much like hearing a strange sound in the night and first thinking of the wind, of leaves, of ordinary things before imagining anything else. And so, one of the earliest thoughts was that perhaps the universe contains vast numbers of faint stars. Small, cold stars, too dim to be seen from afar. Perhaps among the familiar bands of stars, there are countless smaller objects, quiet, giving off little light, yet together providing the necessary mass. This idea carried a certain gentle simplicity, because it did not require imagining anything entirely new. It required only that the universe contain more of what we already see. But as telescopes became more sensitive, as surveys extended over many years, the traces of such faint stars did not appear in sufficient numbers. There were indeed very dim stars and cold, dark objects, but they were like scattered grains of sand, not enough to form a shore. The silence of those observations was not dramatic, yet it was clear, like waiting to hear a sound and realizing that nothing comes. Then attention turned to cold clouds of gas, regions of matter that do not shine strongly and might drift through space unnoticed. Gas can hide more easily than stars, and under certain conditions it can be difficult to detect. Yet gas, no matter how cold, still leaves traces of its presence in different wavelengths, still absorbs or emits signals that delicate instruments can detect. And when the sky was observed in many different ways, the amount of such gas was still not enough to account for the missing mass. There is something very gentle yet important in this process. Familiar possibilities were not dismissed in a single sudden moment, but gradually faded, like a path in mist as one walks farther away from it. There was no instant in which everything vanished, only a slow realization that these ideas could not be the complete answer. At times, people also considered denser objects, the remnants of dead stars, or small black holes drifting silently in the dark. Such objects could carry great mass without shining. But if they existed in very large numbers, they would leave other traces. Small changes in the light of distant stars as they passed in front, subtle fluctuations that instruments could record. And when such observations were carried out over many years, those signs did not appear with the required frequency. These compact objects may exist, but they are not numerous enough to make up most of the mass of the universe. There is a quiet calm in the way each familiar possibility slowly steps aside. Not because it is entirely wrong, but because it is not enough to tell the whole story. And as the familiar paths gradually close, attention begins to turn toward possibilities less familiar, yet considered with the same patience. Very light particles, particles that scarcely interact with matter, were also considered. The universe does contain such particles, drifting through everything almost without leaving a trace, passing through planets, through bodies, through stars, like currents of wind that no one feels. But such particles move too quickly, spreading too widely, like a mist too thin to gather into large structures. And when people looked at how galaxies form, how vast networks arise in the universe, The presence of only such light particles did not seem sufficient to produce structures so deep and enduring. At times, the question was also asked in another direction, gentle yet more daring. Could it be that gravity itself is not entirely understood? Could it be that the familiar laws, which work so well in the solar system and at smaller distances, change slightly across the vastness of space? This thought was not unusual in science. Laws have been extended and refined many times as human understanding has deepened. Yet when the universe was viewed in the light of such ideas, a sense of incompleteness remained. Some phenomena could be explained this way, but others did not fit. Like a piece of cloth pulled smooth in one corner, yet wrinkled in another. The bending of light in galaxy clusters, the ancient signals from the early universe, the large structures of the cosmic network, all seem to tell a story that a small adjustment to gravity alone could not fully tell. And so, very slowly, very patiently, familiar possibilities were set aside, not with disappointment, but with a quiet acceptance. It is like searching for an object in a room and gradually realizing it is not on the table, not on the chair, not by the window. Each place that does not hold the answer still helps us understand more clearly where to continue looking. There is a peaceful beauty in the way understanding sometimes arrives through exclusion, not through a sudden flash of light, but through each possibility fading, leaving a clearer space in which the true question can be seen. And in that space, the idea of another kind of matter, unlike anything familiar, begins to feel more natural, not because it has been directly seen, but because other paths have been patiently and quietly explored. If we allow the mind to rest in that image, science may feel less like a tense journey toward an answer and more like a long walk, where each step, even without reaching the destination at once, makes the path ahead a little clearer. And in the stillness of the night sky, where galaxies continue to turn, where the filaments of the cosmic network still stretch across the deep expanse, the question of the nature of that invisible component remains. Gentle, unhurried, like a faint star at the edge of vision. Enough to remind us that there are still things waiting to be understood in the slow and patient rhythm of the universe. Hypotheses and an open conclusion. And as the familiar paths gradually fade in thought, as each possibility has been examined and quietly set aside, the space that remains does not feel empty. It feels more like a doorway opening into a quieter region, where the question is still present, but no longer hurriedly demanding an immediate answer. In that stillness, the human imagination continues to move slowly, like someone walking through morning mist, unable to see the road clearly ahead, yet still sensing that the ground beneath their feet is firm. Perhaps that invisible component is not stars, not gas, not familiar objects, but particles very different. Particles never touched, never seen, yet perhaps drifting through everything around us, very gently, very steadily, like grains of dust in a beam of light that we notice only when we look for a long time. There have been ideas imagining such particles. Particles that have mass but interact hardly at all with light, that do not take part in the familiar reactions of ordinary matter. They might pass through planets, through stars, through our own bodies, leaving no trace our senses could perceive. If they exist, they would be like a very soft wind, passing through a forest without stirring a single leaf, yet still carrying a slight weight, enough to help shape large motions. Some hypotheses suggest that such particles might be heavier than those already known, moving more slowly, gathering more easily in the early universe, forming invisible structures within which galaxies later emerged. Other ideas imagine particles so light that they are almost like faint waves in space, existing in enormous numbers, creating a gentle foundation surrounding everything. These ideas, though different, share a quiet quality. They are not completed answers, but paths being walked slowly and patiently, in places deep beneath the ground, where light and disturbances from the sky are shielded away. Delicate instruments have been placed, listening for the smallest collisions, waiting for a sign, a vibration, a moment when an invisible particle might leave the faintest trace. These experiments are not loud. They unfold in long silence, sometimes over many years, like sitting beside a still lake, waiting for a single small ripple to appear. And for now, the silence remains. Not the silence of failure, but the silence of a story not yet finished. The universe does not hurry to reveal its secrets, and those who listen to it learn patience, accepting that some questions require more time than a human lifetime to answer. What is remarkable is that, even without a direct detection, the indirect signs remain, steady, repeating, like waves that continue to reach the shore. The motions of stars, the shapes of galaxies, the bending of light, the ancient signals from the early universe, the vast network stretching across space, all continue to tell the same gentle, unhurried story, that an invisible component is present. There is a deep beauty in standing before a mystery, whose existence is strongly suggested, while its nature remains untouched. It is like seeing the shadow of a mountain behind a veil of mist, knowing the mountain is there, sensing its outline, yet not having walked close enough to see each stone. And perhaps it is that distance which creates a special feeling, a sense of openness, not closed, not finished. The universe is not a book that has been fully read, but a story still being written, line by line, through slow observations, patient experiments, and ideas that form and change with time. If we allow the mind to rest in that thought, it may feel lighter. There is no need to know everything at this moment. No need for a complete answer. It is enough to know that humanity is listening, and that the universe continues to whisper a little each day in the language of light and gravity. Perhaps one day, a small signal will appear in an instrument deep underground, or a new model will illuminate what is still unclear. And it is also possible that the answer will be entirely different from what we now imagine. Yet even without knowing, the story already has meaning, because the search itself has deepened the way we see the universe, made it wider, quieter, more profound. And in thinking of this, the night sky itself seems to change slightly. The stars are no longer only distant points of light, but small signs upon the surface of a far greater reality, where most of what exists remains in darkness. Not the darkness of emptiness, but the darkness of what is not yet understood. In that stillness, as galaxies continue to turn, as the filaments of the cosmic web still stretch across the deep expanse, as invisible particles, whatever they may be, continue to pass quietly through everything. Perhaps what matters most is not the answer, but the feeling of being within a universe that is vast, patient, and full of things still waiting to be discovered. And if thought is allowed to drift a little further, we may realize that this mystery does not make the universe more distant, but deeper, like an ocean in which we know that beneath the calm surface, there are depths never yet seen. And in the quiet of the night, when everything seems to slow, it may be enough to hold a single gentle thought that the universe is still telling its story, and that we, in silence and patience, are still listening.